Hi, this is Dr. Bosch, and today your first lab guide is due, so I thought I would just make sure we're on the same page on this. Now, about four of you have already turned this in, so great job on that. They look great. Um, but in case you're having questions, I'll go ahead and make this recording. So here's the lab guide you have to do. And for the very first one, I put some of the homework right on the front just to remind you that along with doing the lab, you have to do questions about the lab. Now, the questions are also very helpful for the lecture. So you'll notice I don't assign any questions for the textbook because really these lab questions go over many of the same kinds of things. So I was trying to keep it just a little simpler. So all of your homework questions will come from the lab manual rather than a textbook, even though they may cover the same kinds of materials. Anyway, so the three homeworks are from the three labs. These homework questions are always at the end of the lab. So if you keep turning pages, you'll see there are questions at the end of every single lab. And so the first questions, 1 through 15, are at the end of lab 27. And I even give you the page number, 406 to 408. So you need to complete those questions. The second one is at the end of the Physio EX lab. Now, we only collected information for activity 1. It's actually quite a complex activity. But again, at the end of that lab, in the lab manual, on the pages PEX 71 and PEX 72, there are questions 1 through 13. Those have to be completed and also turned in with this lab. Lastly, the last lab on the fetal pig, same deal, you do the lab. The last page of the lab, which is on page 718, there are 5 questions and you need to do those and complete them. Now, the best way to do this is to complete the lab, complete the questions, line them up nice and straight in order, and then take pictures, make a PDF of that, and then put that in the Dropbox for this particular lab. Look for the One Lab Guide, Chapter 16, and put it in there. There are other ways of doing this. I know there's a program called CAM Scanner. That's very helpful. On the announcements on Canvas, I've given you some other ways to combine the papers into one. When you make the one PDF, go ahead and look at it before you turn it in. Make sure that you can read it and that you see that all your pages are there, that they're upright, and that they're in order. That's the best way to ensure that you get full credit for this. Let's take just a quick look at the lab itself. So lab 27 involved making some, first looking at the various cells that make up the endocrine glands, and then making drawings of them and then labeling them. I don't give any credit if you don't label, because that's the only way I know you know what you're looking at. So the actual slides are on the module called Slides that I'll show you in a minute. And then the labeling is in your lab manual. So if you look in your lab manual, lab 27, you'll find a picture of the thyroid gland and you'll see the follicles, the follicular cells around them, and then the parafollicular cells beyond that. And you have to label those in your picture. So you do that for thyroid, parathyroid. There's a couple short questions here. These can all be answered by reading about the thyroid gland, either in your textbook or it's actually right there in the lab manual too. There's a section that tells you about the products of follicular cells, the products of parafollicular cells, and same here. Then the pancreas, and the slides are numbered. So sometimes they go in order. In this lab, they happen to go from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 4. But in some labs, they go all over. But they are in order in the PDF, in the module in Canvas. So just make sure you're looking at the correct slide when you're working on this. And then answer these. And then this is just a activity. We're not together, so this is for you to do on your own, looking at the figures, knowing where things are. And I can tell you, if you do all these activities, you will do much better on the practical exam. In fact, you'll probably get 100%. I find that the people that don't do as well on the practical exam see an activity like this activity one, say, oh yeah, I know them, and then it's on the practical and they don't know them. So take the time to really look at it, do what it says, look at the pictures, and then sign it. That's still, and make sure you do initial it. It just lets me know that you looked at this and tried it. And then there's some questions in the group challenge. You don't really have a group to work with. You can communicate with others in the class if you want. And again, these are a little bit of opinion questions because you're just given a reason for choosing why you think that's the odd hormone. If you ever watched Sesame Street and they said one of these things is not like the other, that's the game you're playing here. Which hormone is not really like the other ones, either because of location or structure or gland or for some other reason. And any logical reason will get you the points for that. Then the post-lab questions, this is the only lab that has post-lab as opposed to pre-lab because you're kind of just showing up and doing this lab um, and then answering questions. But I often give you help, like what page to look on for these. All of the rest of the labs will have pre-lab questions that will actually help you do the lab better. But in this particular case, I thought it better just to start by looking at some of those glands and then answering questions about the endocrine glands. So there's a lot. Not all of them have this many questions. This one has a lot of questions. And then at the end, go to the end of the lab in the lab manual. There are 15 questions, and go ahead and answer those questions using your lab. And if needed, use your textbook, use the notes. All those things will be helpful. Okay, so that's the first lab, and that really covers a lot of the endocrine system. If you did a nice job on this lab, you should know that fairly well. Then the next one is a Physio-EX lab. You want to look at the lab in the back of your lab manual. It has its own numbering system. So it's numbered as PEX rather than the other numbers. But they have blue edges on them and they're in the back of your lab manual. So you look there, but you also have to go online. So this is, I had sent something about this yesterday. You do have to go online to do these labs and click on the Physio-EX labs. And there's a lot of questions to do as you go along, but it's fairly straightforward, but very helpful for learning about the thyroid gland, but also the interaction between the various hormones, the tropic hormones of the adrenal gland affecting the thyroid and causing the thyroid to release T3 and T4. So it's really important that you just follow the instructions, look at the different helps at the beginning, kind of read through those. Try not to skip over things because usually what I write at the beginning will help you with the lab. Go ahead and read the lab in the lab manual. So it's actually there in paper. You can see what you're doing, but you're also looking online to figure things out. Now, all the Physio-EX labs have these pre-lab prediction questions. So basically, if you know that the thyroid gland controls the metabolic rate, the basal metabolic rate of the rat, if you remove the thyroid gland, what do you think is going to happen to basal metabolic rate? Hopefully you said it got lower. If you remove the pituitary gland, which causes the thyroid gland to release thyroid hormones, hopefully you'd also say that would lower the basal metabolic rate because now there's no stimulus for the thyroid to release its hormones. So you kind of go through those sorts of things. I won't go through all these questions, but along those lines, if you understand what's going on in the lab, then make some predictions of what you might see. And here's some other predictions, some more predictions of thyroid stimulating hormone. Hopefully you know what that stimulates, right? The thyroid. And then PCH, which is kind of an inhibitor. And again, what you think will happen. These, you don't have to write on, but you do have to actually answer. It says why. Put a sentence there, kind of answer these questions. Sometimes people just leave them blank and then I can't give you credit. Then you're in the lab online and just going through this. You do have to convert the rat's gram weight to kilogram weight because metabolic rate is always measured. This is true of humans too, in milliliters of oxygen used per kilogram mass of the animal, in this case the rat, per hour. So that's why you also have to convert a minute's use of oxygen into an hour's worth, which of course you do by multiplying by 60, right? Because 60 minutes in an hour. And for grams, if it's 205 grams, it's 0.205 kilograms because you move the decimal place 3 over. There are 1,000 grams in a kilogram, so we have to move it 3 over. Your numbers should come out, the metabolic rate should come out to some kind of clear, easy numbers, like 1,700 or 1,500 or 1,300. If it comes out to 2 million or something like that, you know it's not right. So this number should be somewhere between about 1,200 and 2,000 if you're doing this correctly. And you do it for a normal rat. You do it for a rat where you've injected it with thyroxine, which is thyroid hormone, and then the thyroid stimulating hormone, and you get your answers. And you also have a rat that's normal, a rat without a thyroid gland, and a rat without a pituitary gland. And again, you're seeing what happens. Then there's some questions at the end, and these come from the lab itself. So you can look on PEX 64, but I kind of shorten them so they're not take up so much room. But these are all questions about what you got and what happened. This is the whole system from the brain, hypothalamus down to the pituitary, from the pituitary down to the thyroid. And then these are those questions I said are at the end of the lab. So when you're all done with the lab, you've answered all the questions, answer 1 through 13 on PEX 71 and 72. Then the fetal pig dissection. Again, you're going online to actually look at the dissected pig, and there's some questions beforehand and then some views. You should know all these. I'll just cut and paste some of these onto your practical exam. So make sure you've seen them well, taken that quiz, and then just initial that you tried the quiz. Again, there's not very many questions, but if you look on page 722, you'll see 5 questions that relate to this lab. So you need to answer that. Now, when you're done, so there's 6 pages of lab guide, but then you're going to also show me that you did the questions for lab 27. I think there's at least 4 pages for that. The one for the PhysioEX lab, I think there's 2 pages for that. And then the 1 page 722 for this lab. So you'll end up with quite a document, but if you take pictures in order, make it into one PDF, it should be fairly clear. Okay. A couple other things I want to show you real quick. I think I only have a couple minutes left on this screencast. Here is the modules. So I clicked modules, and here I can go down to, oh, I can't. Okay. I clicked modules. This should be about the same view you have. I have more stuff over here. But there's your syllabus and schedule. These are the online labs. I've got 6 there. I will put this discussion right down here, just like I did the online lab and Intro to Canvas. I'll put that there. You'll have 9 altogether. I'm still working on, I'm actually on the 9th one, so that should be done maybe today. And then these are the photos. So we haven't used them yet, but when you get to lab 29, there's blood typing photos, there's heart photos. When they say look at the photos, this is where you look at them. So not all labs have them, but a number of the labs do. And if you click on there, you'll see the photos you need to describe in the lab. And then here are the online microscope slides. So the first half of the semester up to exam 2, the slides will all be in here, and they're numbered. So slide 1, 2, 3, etc. And then these are the slides by number for the second half. Then here are your exams. These are the narrated PowerPoint lectures. They're kind of big, so I broke them up. They're done by either me or Dr. Spencer. If you don't want to listen to us, oh, here's the current event article review. You need that. There's your student research presentations. I sent you something about that. These are just practice reviews if you want to do that. Here are your outlines. It's the one we're working on. Okay, hope this was helpful, and I wish you the very best on